I've read a lot of self-help books, almost 100 over the past 3 years. I've learned a lot of methods and tactics for overcoming a plethora of issues and insecurity. I know how to overcome alcohol, drug, and porn addictions. I know how to lose and gain weight. I know how to cultivate a healthier diet. I know how to interact with men and women and pick up on signs of interest and attraction. I know how to develop and improve one's charisma, confidence, and self-esteem. I know the importance of mental and emotional health and how to develop them for a fulfilling life. I know a lot of shit. However, for the longest time, I struggled with implementing everything I knew and learned about. With each new book I'd complete, I'd be more knowledgeable and confident about life and how to totally kick its ass. But when it came to actually implementing the steps, I knew what to do. Earning money in any career path, building romantic relationships with amazing women, being social and holding conversations with people, working out and developing my body, increasing my confidence and self-expression. I'd always stop at some point. Without fail, I could go for days or even weeks at a time trying to cultivate strategy and methods I'd read from numerous books. And for the most part, the things I was trying to implement could only benefit my life and make it better. Yet, I constantly struggled with sticking with anything long enough to make it a habit. I'd always go back to my old habits. I'd stop working out. I'd stop eating healthy. I'd succumb to my addictions. I'd get self-conscious talking to women again. I'd close myself off. I'd stop progressing. Then, I'd sulk. I'd spent the weekends laying in bed wallowing in self-pity and depression, wondering why I could never change, thinking about how it didn't make sense. I read all these informative books and resonate and even agree with most of the points made. I try and do the practices, the methods, the exercises I read, and every time, I revert back to my same old self. It didn't make sense. How could I continue to fail so often when I held all this knowledge? When did I know what to do, how to act, and essentially just needed to go through the motions in order to succeed? It was at this point, at age 21, that I began to hate self-help books. I began to believe they were all scams, used to get money out of the poor and less fortunate, the less informed. They were just used to sell people dreams and hope of change, but never actually sharing with them the actual solutions to permanent change. I continued reading though because, at that point, I was addicted. While I hated the books, I was still silently hopeful that if I could just find that one book, I'd find the answers I was looking for. I didn't bother implementing what I learned though. I figured it was a waste of time. I'd just revert back to my old habits after a few weeks. I wasn't meant for change. I wasn't meant for success. I wasn't meant to be in a happy relationship. I wasn't meant to have the life I wanted. I was just meant to exist, to be average, to live and die. Looking at all the people who have succeeded, knowing they had the answers but chose to feed us bullshit to take our money. I truly believed that. One day, while I was driving to work, I listened to a speech on YouTube. The speech was called The Strangest Secret, and it was from a guy named Earl Nightingale. The ideas behind the speech were from the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. The summary of the speech and the book were that man can't change anything in his life without first changing his mindset, perception, and attitude toward life. Before a man can expect to make any significant changes in his life, he must first believe he can do so. He must see his goals, his dreams, and his imagination live as if they're already a reality, and he only needs to wait for them to come to him. Reflecting on his dreams, his goals, every single day in order to remain focused and disciplined. A lot of law of attraction stuff, basically. And LOA was highly prevalent in many self-help books, so while the speech was pretty good, I'll admit, I assumed it was more bullshit. A lot of people who advocated for LOA seem to believe that all you have to do is believe you'll be successful. And you will. No mention of the actual steps necessary to achieve said success, just believe you'll succeed. And you will. It just felt like more hope was being sold for profit. But that speech stayed in my mind for the remainder of the day. And after I got home, I continued reading one of my many self-help books, and almost like a slap to the face, I realized something. This book was saying the same thing, fundamentally, though worded differently. The beginning chapters spoke of believing in yourself and reflecting on your goals in order to achieve them. You have to believe in yourself and believe you're capable of achieving X first. After finishing that book, I picked up another and realized in the middle chapters of this book were the same principles of belief. They had the same message. I started freaking out and grabbed a handful of self-help books from my shelf and found the exact same message in all of them, again, just worded differently depending on the author. This is it, I thought. This is how they're making their money. They all sell the same shit to people, just worded differently. I had books published all the way from the 1900 seconds to the present day 2019, and they all had the same fundamental message on achieving success in any capacity in life. You must believe and develop faith in your mind first before you can do anything. Surely this had to be some huge gimmick conspiracy. Or authors simply read the same books I had, took the information that sounded good, and copy it into their own books. It isn't as simple as believing in yourself. It can't be. That's too easy. But then I started branching out. I thought if I looked into financial books and biographies of business tycoons and the super rich, surely they'd say something different. Surely they'd have some scientific and logical explanation for how they reached their levels of success. I looked up guys as old as John Rockefeller, Edward Doheny, Andrew Carnegie, and Henry Ford. I looked up present-day business tycoons, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Oprah, and Zuckerberg. I even looked up rappers, actors, comedians, and entertainers. Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, Tom Cruise, George Clooney, and Denzel Washington. I looked for as many motivational speeches and books from as many recognized rich people as I could. People seemingly had no connection to one another whatsoever. They all said the same exact shit at one point or another. I ate, slept, and dreamt of this moment. I told myself every day that I'd achieve X success. I wrote down my goals every single day. I always imagined what my success would look like. I told myself I was successful, and eventually, I came true. Of course, there was hard work and persistence present in all these people, but all of them said it started with their mindset and belief in themselves. My perception of reality broke. So, I tried it. I said fuck it. If 100+ people all keep saying the same thing, and they all live lives better than mine, they must know something I don't. I'll give their way a shot. Instead of trying some new method or practice of discipline, or trying to follow some new routine that would get me rich, ripped, friends, a girlfriend, and confidence by the truckloads, I decided to scrap everything and just focus on my mindset. Every day, twice a day, I'd reflect on my goals and what I wanted for my life. I'd reflect on them twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. After reflecting, I'd close my eyes for 10 minutes and imagine my life with my new amazing body, with my bombshell girlfriend, wife, with all the money I wanted, with all the confidence and self-esteem I could muster, with all the success I could envision. After that, I went about my day. I continued life as normal, not taking any actual action toward improving my circumstances. Because, apparently, I had to believe I could first, otherwise nothing would change for long. Well, after a week of these mental exercises, some really weird shit started happening. I started thinking about my life more. I started looking at my life and wondering why I wasn't where I wanted to be. Soon, during my free time, I'd imagine more and visualize more. And the imagination practice I did start to become more vivid and real. I'd start to actually see the images I imagined in my head. And as I began to see them more clearly, I began to fill in more of the details that I before just left up in the air. I specified how I got the body I saw, how I got the women I was seeing, how I got the money I was spending, how I grew my confidence and self-esteem I was flaunting off. And after specifying how I got those things in my imagination, I began creating actual plans I could implement in my real life. Baby steps I could take, each day, to achieve the things I was seeing in my imagination. I noticed my internal dialogue was more positive and encouraging, no longer as negative and dismissive as it used to be in the past. I realized that one day while thinking about actually taking action towards one of the blueprints I had written out, instead of my mind telling me, nah bro, that shit won't work. There's no point. It said, what are you waiting for? Let's go. And I actually started working.